Yeah, so BetterView is a platform for capturing and analyzing drone data. So we have, yeah, perfectly fine. Thank you. So what we have is we have software that makes it really easy to capture data using drones like this DJI Phantom 4. And once that information all gets captured, it needs to be uploaded somewhere and it needs to be analyzed. So we want to turn the pixels into real insight. And so we do that. And on top of that, we have a network of pilots who can deliver on those services. So we have some customers who want to fly on their own and use their own hardware. And we have other ones that want to use our pilot network. So anyway, but back real quick, what I wanted to cover though is, we're a venture-backed business in the Bay Area. And as a result, we talked to a lot of investors. And there's one thing that has come up quite a bit that I wanted to discuss. I thought people must find this interesting if it's a frequent question, topic of conversation. And it comes down to how is this market, the commercial drone market, really developing, and what are we seeing, right? So we've been operating BetterView for 2 years. We've been selling to insurance carriers and other customer types as well. And so we've had this front row seat to see where is the market really developing? How is this all playing out? And we're thinking about parallels and how do we draw, some conclusion to decide where are we in this whole adoption curve? But yeah, so given our experience, we think we have some decent insight into this. 2 years of operation. Over that period of time, we've analyzed over 4,200 rooftops using Phantom and other type of DJI drones. Mostly. Of that, it's about 130 million square feet across 50 states. On top of that, we've worked for about 70 different customers during that time. So the whole idea of inspections for insurance companies is not really a new concept for us generally. So my co-founder, Dave, who's over here, his dad started an insurance inspections business 45 years ago. So he grew up around this his entire lifetime until he took over that business over 10 years ago and expanded it a whole lot. What they found over and over again was that insurance companies were lacking, roof data. So that's one reason why that's really an area that we've focused in on is servicing that market. So what we're finding with these investors is they're concerned with, is this the right timing, right? So it's always good to be early, but if you're too early, you can get burned. So this is a photograph from the 1960. It's a video phone from 1964. It was demonstrated here in New York at the World's Fair. So I always remember my parents went to the World's Fair when they were in high school. Apparently they were dating and came from Baton Rouge all the way up to here in New York. And they've told me about this video. I remember just growing up. They talked about video phone, how it was the wave of the future, and it really didn't catch on until about 2010. Maybe you could argue Skype back in 2003, but it really ubiquitous now, right? We all use FaceTime or something equivalent. So the people who were seeing this exhibit in 1964, they were right. They were just really early, right? So no one wants to be right, but way, way, way too early. Market's not very forgiving if that's the case. You also don't want to be, this is another example, right? Where Webvan took on $1.2 billion worth of funding. They were right, they were too early, Cosmo as well, and now we're seeing these delivery services are very successful and they're integrating into people's lives. So things had to evolve, the market under them. But also what you don't want to do is totally miss the boat. And so being able to, this crossing the chasm is probably something very familiar to everyone in this room because we're all thinking about innovation and how does technology evolve. And so this is not, the thing with the chasm is that we're not looking, this isn't like a timeline, right, where it's linear across time. You can get through here and you can just get stuck, right? So you can get your early adopters, and crossing the chasm is one of those things where if you're way too early, to be able to push into the early majority and get past that early adopter phase is a challenge that we always think about, right? So what does that really look like? There's when you start looking at market traction and things to look for, is that you still have pretty low market penetration. And where things really take off is after you've crossed the chasm and you start pushing into the early majority. And that's where hyper growth for technology tends to really happen. The best parallel we could come up with was digital cameras, right? So, and what we're seeing with drones. digital cameras were originally developed. The concept came up in like the 60s. It started getting productized in the 70s, primarily military applications to begin with, some very specialized stuff. The first productized digital camera had 10,000 pixels, right? So just imagine that now, like 10 megapixels, anything less than that sucks. And really, what's interesting here is that the stuff was developed in the 70s, first productized. 95, you still had this tiny sliver of a market, but within 5 years, you saw this period where growth happened. It was starting to get a little bit bigger, and then there was just this total drop-off with analog. It only took a few years. Pretty amazing, right? To think about, so technology took decades to develop, and then when it finally got to that right point, it just totally broke out and destroyed its analog counterpart, right? It didn't take very long once that happened. So, obviously investors want to get on that curve, right? It's like, where can we find the right timing and pick the right thing that's just a massive breakout? Kodak missed the boat entirely. Like, they were in digital, they were creating some of their earliest cameras, they just didn't bet big on it, and they got crushed. Like, in that same period of time, they were gone, right? And they had 175,000 employees, I think was the count. Incredible demise. So you don't want to, being early is rough, but being too late and missing it all together can be far more devastating, right? One of the reasons why digital cameras came up, Dave and I were talking, he was telling me about the past, because he'd built a lot of software systems for his family's company. And I said, what'd they do before? Before you had all this software, 4 cameras, and really what it came down to is they would use a film camera, it would go to Photomat, clearly not in business as well, and at this point, and the photos would get mailed off to the inspection company. So his family's inspection company, as an example, the inspectors would go out, gather these photos, and then write up notes as well and send it off in the mail. Well, the next phase is digital cameras. So the Quick Take, I think, came out in 96, and that was somewhere in that, you saw in the previous graph when digital cameras started to break out. And Dave's dad was on the cutting edge of technology adoption, and some of you guys might have had this camera, right? And had that modem. So so Dave told me when he was in high school, he built a cold fusion app that would zip up all the photo files so it could get, so it could be easy to upload them over a 56K modem, right? That was a huge deal, and they were the innovators of the time being able to do that, and a lot of their competitors were still doing it the old way. We obviously know that things have moved forward from there, and now everything's very smartphone and tablet driven. So the people in the field are going out, capturing stuff with information with their smartphones. They're still sitting down though and punching out a report, right? Filling out checklists. Well, there's a better way to do it, and technology once again is driving the way. And then really the next phase of all this is robotics and AI. So what we're using is drones, because they're a very efficient way to capture imagery in a standardized way. So we can put a drone up in the air, and in 10 minutes we can capture 300 to 500 photos that are very detailed and they're up close where we need to see them, places that are dangerous and hard to get a person, right? And what we're doing right now is we take all that imagery and then we have experts analyze it, right? And so we have, for instance, we're looking at a roof, we have these roofers who go in and they tag up the things that they see, and that generates a report. But what else that's leading to, we're now using deep learning computer vision technology that is picking out the most common issue types, and we're just continuing to expand our list. And it's based off all this training that we're able to do with our experts, right? So utilize that, and over time, we're not there yet, but over time, the deep learning allows the system to actually be smarter and pick up on more things than the humans will. So like Watson, I don't know if anyone's heard, like Watson is being used right now to detect cancer at 4 times more accurately than nurses can, and give legal advice that's more accurate than lawyers can, right? I mean, and so this stuff is really happening. We're applying the same kind of concept, first externally to buildings and structures, properties. We'll be able to do it internally as well. Goldman's pretty bullish on the market right now, but we're still very early for commercial drones, right? It's just now really starting to take off. we've really found in 2016, there's a lot of insurance carriers and other businesses that are kicking the tires. They're starting to use it and make decisions off the data. They're getting more than just purely R&D. 2017, we expect a lot more real production use, and it's, we're just on the verge of breaking out. So these aren't our projections on the right. That's the comment. It's a let's see, what was our source here? but so you see these graphs over and over again from company. It's driven by a lot of the very smart financial institutions and consulting firms and research data firms. So we're, kind of back to the digital photography, lay it back to drones, like where are we? We're probably somewhere, in 98, 99, 2000, right? We're still kind of breaking out, but it's happening. It's pretty exciting to see. And we're following this progression that we did with digital cameras, which is going from military, which we've been using drones for decades now. Consumers really heated up in the last few years. And now the consumer grade stuff's getting good enough that it's driving adoption in the commercial spectrum. So we've seen this pattern play out before. So anyway, that was talking about kind of the timing. I guess I jumped ahead and already covered the slide. But really, like, the question is, what's driving this adoption? What are the big things that are changing? And it's a combination of things. Regulation, first of all. I don't know if anyone has probably read news articles about FAA Part 107. So now the FAA can issue a remote pilot's license that allows somebody to fly a drone legally for commercial purposes. And that license, the only thing the FAA was able to issue before were manned pilot's licenses. That's a very big deal. The hardware just keeps getting better and better. DJI just announced another product release yesterday that was another, they're like on the Apple schedule, but I think they're even cutting the release times in half. Their drones are getting great, right? And then I put this Outliers book in there. It's just this, just a tongue-in-cheek way of saying, like, lots of experience. So the companies we're working with have just had enough time to evaluate and really figure out what works for them. They're getting enough experience to know how they can really adopt this stuff and scale up. So anyway, final statement is just basically drones and AI are really driving massive improvements and how we're seeing the physical world, and we just expect really big things to happen in the next few years. That's it for me.
Many questions. Unfortunately, we don't have a mic. Come on, we're so proud of our mic.
So when the regulations changed from the 333 exemption to Part 107, did you find the number of drone operators or pilots, the database, did it get bigger because it was easier to accommodate that?
Yeah. So a lot of who we're recruiting are people who own drones. We're thinking think about Uber and Lyft, UberX and Lyft. So we're recruiting people who already own their own drones. The regulation's helping more people feel comfortable and qualified to go out and fly, and feel like that there's. So this is like one of those cases where regulatory conditions are like more regulations helping us quite a bit. So but really, like, we're seeing on the customer front too, most importantly, that they're getting a lot more comfortable, particularly with we're talking to like top 20 carriers. They were very concerned with headline risk. If something bad does happen, or they get targeted by the media, they just didn't want to deal with that. But now they feel this new legitimacy of operating they didn't feel before.
Hey, is this working?
All right, yeah.
Kind of strange to talk into this. I was wondering, is there something happening in the drone industry that coincides with that 1999-2000 sort of plot you showed there? That is very clearly an expansion at that point or right after that point. And I'm wondering, is there an event or an enabling technology that you see approaching or either has already happened that enables that expansion?
Yeah, it's kind of this combination. If anyone has bought a drone maybe certainly 3 years ago, you didn't just pull it out of the box and fly it, and it was hard, and people had flyaways all the time. Remember the one in the White House lawn a couple years ago? Even with the DJI drone that you could pull out of the box. So the quality of the hardware is just getting much, much better. And so that's driving a lot of both the commercial but also the consumer need, right? But as we saw the consumer need something coming together, a lot of the software platforms are getting built out too. So we're one of them doing it, but there's other companies as well. And so I think that's what's getting it to the point where commercial enterprises feel like they can integrate at scale a drone into their business workflow.
On the machine learning side of things, what's the biggest challenge between going from images that an expert is tagging to something that's actually actionable? Is it that you're just able to throw it into ImageNet and it runs?
Yeah, so like the biggest thing for us is it's getting lots of, it's training it, right? So it's getting lots of, and the training is a combination of things. It's getting lots of samples, and it's how you tag the imagery. So we are changing the way we tag stuff as well to make sure that the machine learning is able to pick up on that and learn from it most effectively. Yeah, but it's the train. Like there's a lot of great like core tech out there, but the training ends up being the most resource-intensive part.
What kind of data are you collecting from the drones to analyze now, and what are you hoping to be able to collect next year and the year after?
Yes, I mean, what we're doing is we're collecting specifically photos of buildings and properties. So we have a handful of templates for data collection. Like, so one of them might just be look at a general property. We've done parking lots at scale, looking at rooftops. And so we capture lots of images, and then it's how do we bring insight to that is useful to, well, right now it's insurance carriers, it could be the property owners, we do that in some cases as well, but that's basically what it is. It's just turning like lots of photos into, yeah, that's that for us. That's what we're doing, yeah. There's definitely some interesting things in advanced sensors, and we've done some some thermal as well, which is interesting. As those cameras get cheaper and cheaper, we'll see a lot more because it's very effective for us looking for like trapped moisture in a roof. So it can get much better than what like a roofer can do.
Are you looking at alternate markets to help you grow?
Oh, sorry, didn't say.
Are you looking at alternate markets to help you? How big is this market?
Yeah.
Can you grow at a huge scale for hypergrowth out in this market?
Yeah.
Or are you looking at parallel ones as well? Thanks.
Yeah. So we're looking at insurance as our starter market. We think that there's a great opportunity there because they're already used to paying for data. They're used to using data in business decisions around the stuff that we're doing. But really, like where we see longer term opportunity is we've identified over 5 million service workers in the U.S. alone who should have a drone in their truck. It should be part of their toolkit, right? So example would be HVAC professionals and painters, roofers, obviously, landscapers, people who are installing fences. And so all of them could have a drone and use that in their daily workflow. And so we're building around powering that, but it's part of it's data capture, but then the other part is bringing insight to all that data that you've captured.
Okay. What is the availability of drones to carry weight up to 100 pounds or 40 to 50 kilograms? Are there drones commercially available to carry that much weight?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there's not unique. Dave, what's the company that is building a transport drone? EHang, yeah. I mean, so EHang is one of the companies that's focused on that. So the drone, like, they can get bigger and bigger. The more payload you carry, the more battery you need, and more fuel, one way or the other. So but we're actually trying to go smaller and smaller, right? So we get more agility, more longer flight time, and lower price. But yeah, there's kind of you'll see them go in kind of both directions. Some will get bigger, and others are going to get smaller when it comes to like data capture and collection. They're supposedly testing in Nevada the human transporter. I'm not getting in it personally, but you know.
Yeah, they're looking for test pilots.
Yeah, they're looking for test pilots. Yeah, well, any volunteers, we can. Our chief pilot sat in it, but he didn't ride it.
All right, on that note, thank you very much.
He'll probably put his name on the list, yeah.
Yes.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.